will be leading our Microsoft Teams webinar. So I will let him do a quick introduction of himself. I like to call him our Teams evangelist. He gets people so excited about Teams, which is awesome because it's a really great tool and it's great for every organization. So I'll let Malcolm start and then we can go from there. And we want this to be really interactive. So if you do have questions, please feel free to just say them, or if you want to type within the sidebar, you can do that as well.
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. So my name is Malcolm Eaton. I've been with Cyclotron almost over a couple of years now. My title is engagement manager. So one of the things that my job is to go out and do is really introduce some of these technologies to our clients, kind of oversee how they're implemented, how they're designed, sort of how we bring them into the environment for our clients. One of the things that I like about Teams is it's really sort of changed the game and how we do work, right? Getting away from email, getting away from sort of that siloed levels of communication. And today we're going to talk all about that. And, we're even practicing what we preach today as we are going through the presentation. So one quick thing I would ask you is that if you are not speaking, just make sure that you're muted. I think everyone's muted on Drazen. I think mute for me as well. And then just come off mute if you want to ask us a question. There's also going to be this little chat window up here. So I'll be keeping an eye on chat, working with Carolyn to answer any questions that you might have as well today. So like we said, keep it interactive. We've got a small group today, but a good group. So let's go through this and get you guys excited about Teams and Slack. We're going to talk a little bit about the comparison of Teams to Slack. If there's specific things that you're doing in Slack that I don't touch on today, please let us know. I will definitely leave time at the end today for questions. All right, so let me hop into it a little bit. We're going to cover sort of an overview of Teams and how we work with Teams. We're going to talk about how there are some comparisons to Slack and how you can make that migration off of older platforms onto these newer platforms. Carolyn, as you were saying, sort of user adoption and things like that will be key in sort of what we're doing and how we're working. Carolyn, do you want to do the whole Cyclotron thing spiel real quick?
Sure. So we were based out of Northern California. We do have a presence in Southern California, as well as Texas, Colorado, Phoenix, and a few other markets. We have actually I think we've actually upgraded to about 60 engineers total, but as it says on here, 40 in California. And then we do cover everything from modern workplace, Office 365, security, infrastructure, Azure. And of course, we have a huge Teams presence, which we'll be talking about today. So we can really help in a lot of areas, and we work very closely with Microsoft as well as one of their premier partners.
Yeah, and one of the things is that with the growth of Office 365, it used to be like, hey, I work with SharePoint, I do this. Now it's really kind of working within this whole Office 365 ecosystem. Even things like you guys filled out forms today, Microsoft Forms, to kind of sign up for this today as well. One of the things we're going to talk about is how we're bringing Teams in. By the way, I'm only going to be in slides. Give me about 5-10 minutes of slides, and then we're going to right into demos. We'll get right into sort of the meat of the tool, the comparisons, and how we're using it, things we're doing around user adoption as well. So one of the things you're going to see here is that as you come in, as you're using the application, right, we're going to help you guys and help our clients, help people evaluating and designing sort of a structure of how to use Teams and what makes sense, how to integrate it with some of your current processes, and then sort of rolling you through this whole deployment framework, we're calling it, as we work through with it. And we see that pilots and POCs really play a great, strong role in getting people excited about what can be done, and then slowly rolling it out amongst different areas, doing really sort of in-depth connections and automation with AI and bots. And you're going to hear me say this time and time again, training is so key, training and adoption, because it really represents a new way to work. And so when you talk about how do we get people to use it, training, adoption, those are going to be really, really key in sort of how we're working with it. What we've seen be really successful over the last couple of years now, as we've been working with Teams, is really sort of designing that strategy from end to end. We're helping to use user adoption, bringing that user adoption concepts around things like gamification and training and integration into other applications. All that has played a really key role in sort of getting people to use Teams, use the integrations with Teams. The other thing you're going to see is that as some of the AI components are getting integrated, which with bots and connectors, there's also sort of full dialing now and connectivity with Skype for Business and Teams. Even 6 months ago, we wouldn't have done this full presentation in Teams because it might not have been ready, and today it is. And that's the thing that you're going to see is this really, really fast way in which Teams is growing, in which Teams is really sort of working throughout the O365 ecosystem. One of the things that we're seeing as well is what kind of pieces can we bring to the table in helping our clients and helping people use Teams. And so the communication plan is so critical in being able to say, hey, here's what's coming down the pipe. Here's what you're going to be using. Here's how you're going to be working with it. We're also starting to do a lot of reporting. We're seeing how are people using it? What are they doing with it? How are they integrating the tool? Which teams are working? Which teams aren't, as you're going through there too. User adoption, training, we just talked about that. There's so many different types of training. I've seen the most success when we're helping people use Teams with hands-on training. So some of the things that we're going through today, you'll see that. And we work with our clients, we work with people, we work with you to see, hey, how can we work, give you that type of training. And then integrating your Skype, integrating your calling, integrating your conferencing. But also we understand that not everybody's going to use these tools. And so we're integrating with other solutions as well, and really kind of talking about what to use when for our clients. So one of the things that you're going to see is, what is Microsoft Teams? And so I know we've probably got a wide range of users on the call today, but just kind of level setting a little bit. One of the things you hear me say all the time is that it's a hub. It's one place to go to do my work, to kind of work for the day. I've got my conversations in there. I've got all of the customizations I need in there. Maybe it's around documents or forms or something else that I need. But I also know it's going to be secure. So I also know that what I'm doing is going to be secure in how I'm working with it, that I'm sharing with the right people as we kind of work through there. As you see, when we go into the interface, and I'll show you what it looks like, you'll see sort of how we do conversations. We'll compare that a little bit to how Slack does conversations. There's going to be a lot of parallels between the two in that area, but then we'll talk about where some of the differences are. One of the things that you're going to see me talk about a lot is just that integration that you're going to have with other tool sets. So you have tools like SharePoint and OneNote and Skype. These are all going to be tools that integrate naturally with Teams. And so Slack is going to have more trouble sort of integrating with some of those things. Microsoft plays very well with Microsoft. And so that's sort of the key there. This slide is already old, right? And so I've already upgraded this. I've already changed this slide out twice. Teams has taken off only since I came up through SharePoint. And what's interesting is I thought SharePoint took off faster than any other tool, but this really has taken off just so quickly. And one of the things that surprised me almost is how ready people are to jump into Teams. And honestly, I think Slack was a driver for that. Microsoft at one time was saying, hey, should we buy Slack or should we build something else in its place? And Microsoft decided, hey, we're going to build something else. And that's where Teams came about. And it has literally taken off, and it's surpassed even what I think Microsoft was thinking it could be done initially. And then the other question we get a lot is, okay, great, Malcolm, here's Teams. How does it sort of integrate with a lot of the other tools that we're working with? That's probably one of the number one user adoption questions we get all the time, what to use when. Now, if you're fully Office 365 and you've got all the tools here, you'll see a couple of slides that we're gonna run through quickly. I'm just showing you sort of what some of those options are around there, right? I really like Teams as being that place to start my conversations, to start my communication with my team members as I'm working through there, and then using these other tools to kind of share that information as we go through. We have seen Teams now be used for a slew of different types of projects that we're working with our clients on. A big one is around project management and kind of overseeing the projects that people are working on, having one place to go. And the nice thing about that is there's a lot of really strong integrations with tools, obviously Microsoft tools, but tools like Jira and tools outside of the Microsoft realm. I think the other thing I really like is that Microsoft has made a conscious effort to say, hey, we're going to play well with tools outside of what are just the Microsoft ecosystem. Now, I like the slide because it's kind of funny because you see a lot of the younger generation coming up is just used to sharing content, right? I came up through the email generation where everything is going through email. But now it's more like, hey, how can I share this? How can I share my images? How can I share what's going on? How can I share some of that information in Teams, Yammer? These tools do a great job of sort of allowing that sharing as you're coming in through there. So once again, sort of what to use when you see some of the generational preferences on the right hand of that slide. You see sort of the priority and sensitivity. We've created a couple different versions of this depending upon the tool sets that you're using. Not everybody's using the same tools. Not everybody's using all these tools. And so we talk about how we can work with the different tools and what to use when. Another quick slide just showing sort of, hey, how does that kind of conversation, collaboration flow over a period of time, and how are those tools sort of integrated through that period of time? One of the things that you're going to get an advantage when you compare Slack and Teams is that Microsoft and Office 365 has to apply to a lot of compliance, right? So there's HIPAA, there's a lot of different compliance that Microsoft has fought for. Teams falls under all of those compliance issues, all those compliance concerns. So you're able to, that it's going to follow some of these really stringent compliance standards that you're going to need for Teams. This slide it's a little techie. We're gonna kind of skip some of the techie stuff today so we can get right into some of the hands-on pieces. But this is a nice job of saying when you create a team, an Office 365 group comes along with that. And that brings things like Planner and OneNote, conversations, and other tools as well. So right before we get into Teams versus our Teams user interface, just real quickly, we're gonna hit on some things about the two different tools, and then we'll talk about those as we go through the demo and we kind of walk through them there. When you're looking at cost, you're really looking at Slack at a per user per month. Yes, Slack has a free version, so does Teams. But when you're looking at the enterprise level, you're looking at kind of a larger level, we're not going to really be using those free tools. Both are going to have persistent chat. The integrations, and so one of the things you'll see, and we'll show you some resources later in this presentation about how the integrations are growing and growing and growing. So one of the challenges I always have with this presentation is like, okay, I got to update all my numbers, make sure things aren't too stale. And so the integrations that Teams had as of July was 180. I know that it's been almost double that in the last 3 or 4 months as I've been watching some of these other pieces come down. Just didn't get exact numbers on it. You see some things around file sharing, sort of how you're able to do some file sharing and collaboration. We're going to talk very briefly about document collaboration, document management, some of the differences, but really some of the benefits you get of combining SharePoint, Microsoft Office, and Teams all in one. Right now, we're doing video calling, so you can see the video calling, you can see the quality, you can see sort of the user experience just by joining this presentation today on how Teams works within the calling and the PSTN calling that is now available. You're gonna get some Active Directory sync. I think one of the biggest challenges that I've heard about Teams versus Slack is Slack has all these beautiful customizations that you can go through. Yes, you can do more customizations on the Slack side of things, but with Teams, you're gonna be able to do sort of a light and dark theme right now, and they're working on sort of providing more options for you and more branding. What's interesting, well, it's a quick sidebar about that. What's interesting about branding is people complain to me about that at first, hey, can we brand it? Can we brand that? And then all of a sudden they're like, well, you know what? It actually works fine. And so you'll see today on the mobile device, on the desktop device, and all the devices that we have, it's nice having the same user experience. As you start to brand in one spot, you're going to need to brand in others as you go through there. All right, so that's the look and feel. We'll show you some Teams versus Slack in real, and let's get right to the demo here as we look through. So let me get out of PowerPoint, right? And so we're looking at Slack there. One quick thing you're going to see here is within Teams, you have 3 different ways that you can access Microsoft Teams, right? And so the first way is going to be through your O365 account. And so as you come into Office 365, you click on the little grid up at the top here. I still don't have a good name for that. It was the hamburger before, the grid. So I come up in through here, I click on this, and then you'll see me click on Teams right here, right? And so this will bring up the web version of Teams. Your web, your iPad, your phone, your desktop version, they're all going to look the same. They're all going to be sort of the same look and feel as you work with it, and that's nice from a training perspective. So as we bring clients on board to Teams, we're able to train on all 3 different devices, right? So today we're going to be in this Teams overview channel from our Cyclotron PMO. And so Carolyn, Kevin, I see you're online. Joseph, I see you're online as well. You guys can hop in here and you can chat with me a little bit on the Cyclotron PMO Teams overview. And I'll walk you through sort of how this is set up in just a second. We'll talk about teams and channels and managing members as well. You're also going to see that within my desktop version here, here's my meeting that we're having today. I can see who's online. As I click on Teams within here, it will then take me back to that same environment that we have. And so I can manage my teams and my environment through here. And then as I'm working with the presentation, all I need to do is click back on there and it takes me right back to my meeting that we're having currently. And last but not least, of course, is the mobile version. And so with the mobile, what you're going to see is as I share with my computer here, you're going to see the same sort of interface. And we can talk about that a little bit too, just showing in how seamless it's going to be working with the different devices, right? So here is my cell phone. And as you look in through here, here's my Teams environment, right? So the same sort of Cyclotron PMO. I just got an alert that Carolyn said hi in the general channel. I can say hi back to her right there. Right, and what's nice is I'm getting alerts on all my devices, right? So as I'm working through there, I'm getting alerts. I'm able to send that information back out. I get alerts on my phone, my desktop, different areas that I'm working with in through here. Let me show you real quickly too, just how the look and feel is the same as we come through. So here's my team site. It's a little bit of a delay. So here's my team site. As we're going through there, I see my team site. I'm going to see my channels in through here as I'm working with each of the different channels. Here's my team's overview channel that we're working with. Josep's giving me a little love that's saying Teams is cool there. I can go through and I'm going to like that comment as we go through here. We're going to spend a little bit of time on comments today. We're going to spend a little bit of time on communication because I think that's where the real power starts with Teams, and then it just really kind of grows from there. Okay, so taking a look at that, you'll see sort of my team site. So let's talk about sort of the organization of Microsoft Teams and how you're working with it. So what you see on my left-hand side there, those are all my teams, right? So I have all the teams that I'm working with right there. Right now, what we do is I organize most of my teams by either Cyclotron or clients I'm working with. And then within my channels, they're going to be topic-based, right? So here's my teams. I open up my team, and within my team, I have channels, right? So just like Slack has channels, Microsoft Teams will have channels. Now, the one thing you're looking at here is you do not have private channels yet. It is the number one requested feature in the Microsoft Teams user voice, and we'll talk about resources in a minute on that too. And so within there, you're going to see, like I said, here's my teams and here's my channels. And so now if I want to manage my team in through here, I can click on the three ellipses. It's always the three ellipses, right? So if it's SharePoint, if it's Teams, it's always the three little dots. You click on them and you're going to see all your options there. I come in through here and I can manage my team, right? So what I can do here is I can take a look at my team. I can manage my team here because Cyclotron says, hey, we can allow guest accounts. I can actually add guest accounts to this team if I wanted to. So as I come in through and I click add members, if I wanted to add somebody as who might not be there, so let's just say, you'll see here's my Gmail account. So if I'm using that as a guest, that's my guest account there. And I can add people as an owner, a member, or a guest. Only outside people can be added as guests. Otherwise, internal people are added as owners or members. And we'll show you some of that on the different rights there in just a second on what the rights are there. Here I can see people who have requested to join this team. This is sort of a new feature that just came out a few months ago. So as people request, I'll see the pending requests through here. Within my team, I can take a look at all my channels. One thing that we saw is that as you add a bunch of channels, right? So as you have a team and it has all these different channels on it, I want to auto favorite one of those channels. I can come in through here, auto favorite it. Now everybody's going to see that channel as one of their favorites. And you see over here in my left-hand side, these are my favorite channels. If I wanted to unfavorite a channel, so here's my test channel I was working with, I can remove that as a favorite, and then it drops into the 5 more channels section here, right? And so it's going to be organized alphabetically here, except general is always at the top. So everything else is going to be organized alphabetically. General is always going to be at the top. But then as I add my favorites in through here, I can come in through that and do that. So as you're organizing it, you have a lot of channels. We're working with a client right now in LA, and they're going to have 200 channels as they're working with different pieces of inventory. So what we're doing with them is we're saying, hey, as you work with them, make them favorites. As you're not, take them away, and you'll kind of work with them there. You do have the ability to archive teams, but you don't have the ability to archive channels just yet, right? And so we can't hide the channels. But what I just say is using favorites to show and sort of semi-hide the channels as you're working through them. All right, so you see there's my description, there's my favorite. I can also see the last activity, and I can see the same. I can manage my channel here, and we'll talk about that in just a second too. I can add a new channel here, or I can add a new channel here as we're working with it. Next thing you're going to see is the different settings that you're going to have within a channel. You can add a custom picture for your channel as you're working with it. And then we're talking about security a little bit, right? So if my team members, they can go in. Let me zoom in here a little bit too, so it's a little bit easier to see. So my team members here, you can see what they're allowed to do by default. So everything in this list here is what the team members can do by default. As an owner, I can say, you know what? Maybe I don't want them to be adding tabs. I want them just focused on the work that we're doing. Maybe adding or removing tabs isn't what I want here. So you can determine sort of what's important for your team and make those settings here within there. For guests, those are outside users. The only customizations that you can have here are allowing and creating updating channels and deleting channels. We're going to talk about app mentions in just a little bit. App mentions are very, very powerful and very, very important, right? Because you don't want conversations or communications or tasks getting lost. And so you want to use those app mentions there to really get people's attention and make sure that they're not, that they're responding to the right communication. If your team is private and you want to send somebody to join it, you can just say, hey, generate a code, send them the code. They'll be able to then automatically join your private team that you're working with. Another quick thing I would say is allow the fun stuff, right? I know sometimes when I'm working with people in IT, like, we don't need this. It's going to be annoying. We don't need this. I'm like, nah, allow the fun stuff because it's just another easy way for user adoption. You know, if somebody can send you a smile or a GIF or a happy face, as long as it's professional, of course, it does help on the user adoption side. And we'll talk about other user adoption techniques in just a minute too. Another thing you're going to see here is when I add a tab, certain apps are going to become available. And we'll show you that in a little bit here as well. But I can customize what apps are available. On the admin side, I can say, hey, this is what I want for all my teams. On the team owner side, this is what I can say I want for my members to be able to see. So there's different levels of security and sort of saying what we can and can't use. One of the things that we've seen is sort of a wide range of people saying, hey, I want these tools to be available. Or there's other clients we've had who said, I don't want anything available. Just make these 3 things available. There's pros and cons of each. It depends upon your audience, depends upon sort of what your goal is you're looking for. I tend to err on giving them more, seeing how people use it, and then sort of working with it from there. But obviously, if you have super secure data, you got to watch that. Okay. So let's take a look here. So we take a look. This is how I manage my team and the store. And we'll show you that in a minute too. That's going to allow you to get a lot more different integrations. So those 180, 200, 250 integrations that are available, you can get them from the store here. All right. So moving on here a little bit, we see managing my team here. So the other options I have when I'm managing my team is I can add channels. We talked about adding members. Let's say I want to leave the team. Right, so maybe this is a team that somebody had me join or I joined a while back. I can leave that team. It then removes it from my anchor there and I won't see it. I can edit the team, user adoption, right? So one of the things you're going to see, and this is a lot with my boss, Amber, he's like, okay, hey, email me this, email me that, email me this. I'm like, you know what, here's a link to the team. All the information you need is right here, right? I can send links to the team, to the channel. Gotta lead that horse to water, right? And I'm telling you, it takes time. So what I've been doing is using a combination of email and team links and emailing channels, which we'll talk about in a second, to get people sort of sometimes kicking and screaming, coming over to that team's environment, but it helps a lot. It helps a lot. And then I can delete the team. You want to be very, very careful when you delete the team because that's going to take care of all the other information around it, the channels, the groups, any of the information that you have. So you want to be really careful here. There's things that are protections in the background, and there's going to be things that say, I know some of the clients say, hey, when I delete it, I want it gone. I don't want it in any recycle bin. I want it gone. So there's options there too that are available for you. All right, so keeping my eye on the chats, not seeing any questions as we're going through here. Like I said, if you guys have questions, stop me, slow down. I've often heard I can speak a little fast, so please let me know. All right, so we've got some channels on our left-hand side here for my team, right? So now as I'm managing my team, one of the things I can do here is I can click on the 3 ellipses again, right? So I can edit this channel. Like if I wanted to change the team's overview, if I want to automatically favorite it, I could do that here as we edit that channel. I can have connectors that will post information to the channel. So if we're working with Jira or we work with Axure mockups, as we do those mockups, it automatically posts to the channel saying, hey, changes were made to the mockup. So there's a lot of different ways that third-party applications are connecting or providing information to these channels. And we'll show you that with the conversations in a minute too. So going back to user adoption, going back to the links, a lot of times, pulling people out of that email habit where everything has to go into email. We're using email addresses for channels. What that's allowing me to do is saying, hey, I'm going to email people, but I'm also going to email the channel. And then a lot of times what I'll do is I'll start just responding to the email conversations in the channel. And we'll show you that in a minute too. That helps to then say, okay, hey, let's just have the conversation here so everyone can participate if they need to, or other people can become aware of the conversations we're having. Same things with links. And then one of the questions that I get asked often is, Malcolm, I want to get notified anytime something happens within that channel. Then you're going to follow the channel, right? I will tell you, it becomes overwhelming in a heartbeat. And so a lot of times what I tell the people is just, hey, as you're working with the channels, you'll get a sense for, okay, hey, I know when something's bold, I know that there's new information in there. I know when somebody alerts me, there's going to be alerts kind of coming in there as well. All right, so let's take a look at the team's overview. Now let's take a look. We've taken a look at how channels are organized. Within my teams, by the way, I can drag and drop my teams. And so if I want my Cyclotron PMO to be at the top, I can drag and drop my organization on the left-hand side. So it really wants to be a customizable experience for how people are using it and sort of how they're working with it. Okay, so as I am now working inside of Teams, one of the things you're going to see, and the most powerful piece to sort of kick off Teams is conversations. Why is this the most powerful? Because this is where the communication should be happening. The benefits of having your communications here over email is 2 or 3 people might be having a conversation and another person comes in out of nowhere and says, hey, this is how you fix the issue, right? People are becoming aware of the conversations that are being had. These aren't private conversations that we're having. They're just sort of going back and forth about a project, about a topic, about an initiative that might be happening. And so you want the people who are part of the team or part of the channel to be able to do that. So as I start a new conversation, the first thing I want to do is I want to say, who do I need to talk to? So that @ sign becomes so important, right? So as I'm talking with Carolyn, and maybe I'm talking with Yosef or Kevin, so these are the 3 people on the call for me today, from our team, from our Cyclotron team, I say, hey, how is the presentation going so far, right? And then I can just hit enter. And now what happens is the 3 of them all get alerts on their devices saying, hey, Malcolm is sending out a conversation to you. He sent you a topic. So another thing that frustrates me is that you get these emails going back and forth that says, hey, can you do this for me? Sure, I can do this for you. Hey, thank you for doing it. Hey, you're welcome for doing it. Like 4 emails where you're doing one thing kind of coming through. And all you really need to do sometimes is just give it the thumbs up. I really like the sort of thumbs up concept where I say, I like this message as we're working with it. And that helps a ton, right? To kind of streamline communication. I'm acknowledging I got the message from you. Something as easy as posting something and then giving something a thumbs up is great, right? Because we're having that communication as we go through there. And so the other thing you're going to see, right, is that the same things that we're seeing on my web device, I'm seeing on my phone, right? So I'm seeing the same conversations on my phone as they're happening in the web, as they're happening on my desktop. So a lot of people, I think, when they start to try to use Teams, there's a fear that these messages are getting lost. And trust me, they're not getting lost. They're in 3 different locations. There's threaded conversations that are going on as you're working with them. Kevin, building up my ego. Thank you. My ego is big already, but that helps. And so the other thing you're going to see here is as we work with conversations, right? So that's a real simple back and forth. But let's say I needed to get sort of a big status report or like a more of a high level status update on something, right? So I can click on this little thing over here in the lower left, this little A, and it gives me a little bit more room to work with. So one of the things that you're not going to see in Slack is more of this comprehensive, rich text editing that we can do here, right? So let's say this is a Teams training status update, right? And then what I can do through here is I can say, hey, we are working on features such as, I can bold something. Oops, I can do bold. If I learn how to type, I can do italics. I can do underline. So some of the customization, some of the basic formatting customizations that you might want to use are all going to be available to you here, right? So you can do just a little bit more from a, kind of providing information for your users. And then you can adjust the fonts and obviously add links in here as well too, right? So as I add a link in here and I can say, okay, text to display, Cyclotron website, right? And then I can say, and then you can put a URL in there, http://cyclotrongroup.com, right? And then I can insert that in there. And then what it's going to do is as I post some of this information, it's actually going to provide a preview into some of the websites that I'm working with, into some of the tasks I'm working with. So there's a lot of sort of smart communication that's going on with these conversations. So the other thing you're going to see here, thank you, Gabriel. I saw your message there in chat. And so the other thing you're going to see over here is with the ellipses, I can come in and let's say I want to edit my conversation, right? So I made a mistake. You do have the ability to edit them. Another thing that's very important is owners out of the box have the ability to delete conversation. So I can go in here and delete something that's inappropriate. I can delete something that's not, maybe doesn't work. But we can also restrict that so team members can't do that, right? Guests cannot do that. One of the things that you can do as you can delete your own messages as a member and as a guest, but you can't delete anybody else's. I can mark things as unread, so I need to go back and then read them later. It's going to show me that last read. I can copy a link. And so once again, how do I drag my boss out of email and bring him all the way over here into Teams? I'm just going to copy a link to the conversation and say, hey, Amber, I provided an update in the team site. Here's a link to it. And then he'll take a look at that, right? So slowly bringing people who are fighting it back to the fold. Last thing I want to show here in the conversation is the ability to save this message. So as the conversations start to come through again and again and again, let's say I want to save this message, I can save it here. It's then going to put it in my properties up here in the upper right. So as I come up here and I want to take a look at my messages, and also as I want to take a look at my options, right? So I'll see all of my options that are available for me, including my notifications up here in the upper right, right? So I can see here, I can take a look at my saved messages, and then it'll go and show me all the saved messages that I have. Right, so there's the ones that I've been working on. And then I can take a look at my notifications in here as well. So as I look in through here, I can take my saved, I can take a look at my settings. And then what you're going to see here is the ability to track my notifications. Notifications are obviously very important. I don't want to lose my messages. I don't want to lose sort of what clients trying to get back to me, telling me to. So I can get notifications through banner or email. So if I haven't looked at my team site for 4 or 5 hours, I'm going to get an email saying, hey, you're being talked about in this team, go check it out. And so I use banner and email as I get my notifications coming through here. You're going to have some of the same options on your phone as you're setting alerts within your phone and within those settings as well. So very important to kind of go make sure you check out your notifications and check out your settings that you have on there. And then you can see what keyboard shortcuts about. If you want the desktop app or the mobile app, you can download them here. All right, so let's get back to our team over here as we're working through it on my team's overview. So we looked and I have sort of my conversations. If you take one thing out of today's presentation, try to have your conversations here first. See if instead of having your conversation start in email, see if you can have it start here around a topic, a presentation, a project, and then kind of keep pushing people here. You'll see some of the benefits. Just like with any sort of social media platform, the conversations can't be happening in two places, right? So one of the people, another question we get is, hey, Malcolm, can I have a conversation in Slack and then have that show up in Teams and then have that show up in email? There are ways to make that happen, but the work to do that is really sort of very, very time consuming. One of the things we talk about is say, hey, start your net new conversations, your net new projects over here, and slowly bring your other people into Slack as you're working with it. All right, so as we're looking at conversations, we've talked about how important conversations are. Now we talk about sort of that hub workspace that we have, right? Across the top here, you're gonna see that I have these tabs across my top. And that's where I can focus my users' attention on what's important, right? So for our PMO, we've got a lot of things going on. We've got a lot of sort of structures and trainings and sort of processes that we're working on. But right now, I just want this to be focused on teams. And so any of the files that I have, I'm going to drop into my files tab here. Files, files are SharePoint, right? So files are sitting in a SharePoint site on my back end, behind my team site here that are working through that. And it's really simple. If I want to drag and drop files in here, I can just take a file, I can drag and drop it right in here, right? And so then as I'm dragging that file in there, it's actually uploading it to the SharePoint site that supports this team site. Every team site that you create has a SharePoint site that is created at the same time with it, right? So that's that Office 365 group. We're connecting all of these pieces, and this is a view into that information, into those files. Let's say you're using Box. Let's say, you know what, hey, Malcolm, Box is how we're doing external collaboration right now. That's fine, right? There's ability to add cloud storage in here so you can work with SharePoint, Dropbox, Box, Google Drive, anything you see here, right, can be added. It can also be restricted. So we can take away those options as well as we're going through there. The other thing you're going to see across the top here is the ability to just add different sort of functions that are relevant to that team that you're working with, right? As you click on this little plus here, you're going to see all the different options for the different types of functionality that you can add. A question I've gotten a few times is, Malcolm, what tabs do you guys use? What are your defaults that you guys work with? Whenever we start a new project or a new client or a new topic, you'll see me go right away. I'll add OneNote because I want all my notes to be in one place as I'm working with it. I'll add Planner because I'm managing all my tasks for that project, for that plan, for that initiative using Planner. And then that crosses different plans. I can give a whole presentation just on Planner, just on OneNote. So those are the two that I start with sort of out of the box. One of the things that we're seeing more and more is bringing Power BI desktops or Power BI dashboards. And so as I'm working on a project, particularly as we work with our clients, we're saying, hey, Malcolm, where do we sit with hours and tasks and budget? And so we're adding these really nice Power BI dashboards to our team site. So our client has great visibility right away into sort of where the project sits. So we're using more and more of this, and we love it internally. So we're using it for all of our projects and all of our clients. You'll see Carol ins and out of Microsoft Forms, right? And so we're able to start to collect feedback through forms and information that can work outside of your tenant as well. All of these different tabs and integrations are configurable, right? You're going to see all these different third-party tabs as well, and this is growing every single day, right? As we're working with it, you'll see in here as I click on more apps, that then takes me to the store where there's even more apps that we can integrate within Teams. I'm always surprised. We keep adding tasks as we're working through it. We keep working through different tasks as we work with our clients. And as we work with other, because it's not all going to be about one type of technology. And so this really helps to kind of integrate what you're working with into one environment. Sort of that hub, going back to that hub concept again. All right. So you see here, one of the things we're working on is the exact presentation I'm showing you today. I added that as a tab. And so right away, as our team is coming in here, as we're working with that, you can see that team's presentation right here inside of Office, inside of Word. And there it is right there. And then, so we just have other tabs that we come in within here as well. I often turn the wiki into a links. When we talk about what to use when, one of the things I tend to use the wiki for is sort of content that's not very fluid, right? So static links and resources and references, notes can be very fluid, right? So I love OneNote because I'm moving my notes around all the time. Other people are jumping in there. We're moving things back and forth. It's very fluid. So I use OneNote for that. But then I like to use the wiki for links here. And while we're here, let me take you to two places that I look at all the time as I'm learning about teams and as I'm wondering what's new within teams. One is this team's blog site. It is incredibly helpful because O365, as you all know, changes so fast. So as it changes, I have to keep up to speed on all these things. And so before I got on this call today, I'm like, what's new? What have I missed? And you'll see here, there's a great new user adoption hub. Lots of great information here on techniques and tips and tricks on helping people to sort of get into Teams and use it and be productive in using Teams. The other thing you're going to see that I thought was great was sort of this new Teams admin. One of the challenges we were having is administering Teams, being able to oversee Teams. There wasn't a true Teams email admin now, or Teams admin, and now there is. And so you'll see that, and that just came about. You'll see that blog post was 11/19. Every month, you're seeing sort of what are the different tips and the things that people are working on. What are the new features that are coming available, right? So I look here all the time, and then the other thing that happens is my clients will ask me all the time, Malcolm, is that available yet? Can I work with this yet? And the next place I go to is the user voice within Teams. The number one request that I hear from our clients, the number one request that Microsoft has is support for private channels, right? So you see that here, they're collecting feedback on it, they're working with it. There's a couple on here that I'm looking forward to. You're looking at more of a compact chat layout to be able to kind of work with that. We work so heavily now with Planner and recording tasks that all of the integration between Planner and Teams that's coming about is really helpful for us. And then here's my favorite right here. And so because we are consultants, I have 6 or 7 different team sites that I have to be checking. And so what's nice is that they're getting it away to kind of just be able to check one with Teams here. So these resources are great. I list them here as we're working through it. But as you're working with your projects, you can do the same thing as you're working through that too. And what you're going to see is when I create a new team, right out of the gate, I get conversations, files, and wiki. I can customize my wiki, I can remove it, but what you can't do yet is you can't get rid of conversations, and they don't want you to. That's the whole purpose of it, and you can't get rid of files, right? So these are always going to be 1 and 2 within your team and within your setup that you have. Okay, 1047, I'm going to keep rolling here as we're going through. So we've talked about integrations. We've talked about being able to add that content. The other thing you're going to see where the power between Slack and Teams is a little bit different is just the document collaboration, right? And so one of the things that is so strong within Microsoft is the ability to be able to work on multiple documents at the same time on the same plate, in the same place, right? That's because of SharePoint on the back end. That's because of the integration between Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. And so as we're working on things, for example, like this presentation, one of the things that you see is other people can be in here taking notes, kind of going through things. One of the pieces of advice that I give is, yes, you can work on the documents in here, but I always say, if you've got the desktop version of these tools, use those. Right? So as you use the desktop version of these tools, you're going to see more features that you'll be able to work with, more feature sets as well. So there's that, and so that plays a big role because, like I said, the document collaboration is really crucial to being able to kind of work on the same proposal, PowerPoint, any of those other pieces. If you need some of those features that are available that are a little bit more robust and just in versioning and document tracking, one of the things that you'll see is when I open in SharePoint, we see that SharePoint site that's on the back, that's on the back end of my team site as we're working with it, right? That's supporting my team site. And so there's my test document that I just uploaded 7 minutes ago. I can see my versioning. Here I can see a few more things around metadata and taxonomy. I can create a flow around some of this information. I can sync it with my OneDrive that's on my local here. So as I'm syncing some of this information, I can bring third parties in to do workflows. So the functionality, once you get past what I call like that 10%, that tip of the iceberg, that's amazing, some of the things that you can do. Then that's sort of where we get excited as consultants is yes, how do we work with teams? How do we do some of these other pieces? But really, how do we integrate this workflow process that we have that feeds into this report, that feeds into a line of business system, that provides this dashboard that kind of integrates with all these other tools? That's when you see real sort of ROI type things as you're kind of working with some of the content here. All right. Let's see how we're doing. So we've got the integration. Let's go back to my team side over here. We talked about the integration. We talked about the tabs. Some of the other things you're going to see on the left-hand side here are my chat. So as I chat with different team members through here, I can use chat. We as a company are rolling from Skype full-blown to Teams, right? So all of our chatting, all of those things, we're rolling off of Skype, and we're doing a full-blown Teams integration as we're working with, I think, what we're doing with our clients and internally. We're also starting to have all of our meetings, our Teams meetings now. So I'm able to manage my calendar, my meetings through here. Once I click on files over here, this shows me any of my Teams files along with my OneDrive files, and it also has my Box files here as well. Then there's all of these artificial intelligence, and you're hearing so much about AI these days and integrating it with work and the things that you're doing. You're going to see that more and more with Microsoft Teams. And so you think of things like, I really like the Who bot, right? And so I can say, who is Carolyn as I come up and through here, right? And then it will go through and say, hey, give me permission. I'm giving you permission. It's going to let me sign in. And then it's going to say, hey, this is who Carolyn is, right? And so then I can chat with her. I can get her number. I can get all of the information about her. It's a really nice phone book to have, right? And so I'm actually going to be at a client site today, and we're talking to them about making sure that all of their AD is integrated, all of their contact information is integrated so that this works, so that this type of functionality works for them. All right, so I'm going to go back to my slides for 3 minutes, and then we're going to leave a little room for questions here. I just want to make sure I haven't missed anything that we're covering today. I'm obviously going through a lot of information very fast. So let me get back to my presentation here. So we went through the demo. So today we talked about sort of working with a team, how you manage that team. One of the things I didn't mention is that teams can be private or public. And so private, only your team members can see it. Public, anybody internally can see that team. We talked about managing users, the ability to add guest users outside, which can be configured to have or to not have as you're working with it. User access, we talked a little bit about sort of how the different access is set up within the different team members, how you can customize for team members and guests. We went through the team settings and permissions. How do we add a channel? The importance of conversations, right? So making sure that you're using that at feature. I worked with a client last week, and they said, Malcolm, why haven't you been responding to me? I'm like, well, you didn't at me, so I didn't see that they were there, and I didn't check, or I wasn't following that team. So make sure you're using the ats as you're working with that. Right now, you're seeing a lot of our chat is moving off of Skype into Teams, and so we're using the Teams chat client on the phone, on our desktop, on our mobile. The default tabs, we talked about conversations, files, and wikis. You saw that within there. We talked about adding a tab today. 150, you saw my other slide at 180. Now I think it's well over 300. So I need to update this slide as we're going through, but that's sort of the thing. It's kind of crazy as you're working with it. One thing I didn't mention is the ability to have sort of conversations around a document. So we talked about that collaboration, but what's really nice is that you can have a full-blown conversation outside of the document. So this isn't inside of Word or PowerPoint or Excel. It's in parallel with it. Oh, search is a biggie. So as we look at search, one of the things that you're going to see that is new, not new, but released over the last 6 months is really a really robust search, right? So as I type something in like SharePoint to search, I'm going to be able to see any messages where we talked about SharePoint, any people whose name is SharePoint. We have a SharePoint support user role, so I can see sort of that role that we've got, and then any files, right? And there's really great filter capabilities coming in. I can filter by team, by file type, modified by. So there's some advanced filters that you can work with here. Search is very robust. It's built on SharePoint as that backbone. The other quick thing I wanted to show here is I can have a couple of other options. As I put a slash in here, it shows me some commands that we can work with, right? So I can see what's maybe the keyboard shortcuts are. I can send a quick message to a person that I'm working with. And then the last thing is as I I can see some of the people in my platform. This top toolbar here, really powerful. So spend a little time with it as you're sort of working with your team. We look at the calling features, right? So this has been updated really quickly. I mean, Microsoft's key goal really is to get that PSTN dialing, getting all that set up so it can be your communication platform. And over the last 6 months, Microsoft has made huge strides in sort of moving from Skype into Teams. Really making sure that all that functionality that was in Skype is now within Teams. That's what I'm saying. We're using it internally fully. We're moving off of Skype completely into Teams. We talked about notifications through Teams Desktop. We showed you the mobile platform today. I'm not going to spend too much time on guest user access, but right now guests can now be so a Gmail account, a Hotmail account. So guests can be any sort of account that you're working with. And by the way, if anybody wants the slide deck, we can provide you a copy of the slide deck. I know I'm cranking through it as I have 3 minutes to go, 5 minutes to go. Real quickly too, we have been really fortunate to have some amazing clients that we've been working with. Flex is a great one we've been working with their user adoption, 80,000 users. It's been a great sort of experience period. Aviation Capital Group is another big client that we're working with. Plantronics was one of our first big Teams implementations. They were making the move from Jot to Teams. Now what we're doing is we're helping clients move from Slack to Teams. And so we've got a platform, we've got a structure to help get people's conversations, files, information off of Slack into Teams today. And then we don't need any of the developer integrations right now. And I think that is going to be it for my slides. And then what we can do here is there's a lot of customizations that we're doing as well. And so we're doing a lot of PowerShell automation that we're doing for them. And the last thing I want to leave you with is this slide right here is, I said there's one thing I wanted you to get out of it was the conversations. Okay, now there's two things I really want you to get out of the presentation. One, try to learn to get off of email, right? So try to make that leap coming off of email, trying to use Teams. You'll see these 5 reasons I love for sort of moving those conversations to Teams. And that's what made Slack so powerful. And they got that early on. And then Microsoft said, hey, we get it now too. And that's what Teams is all about. So we showed you today a bunch of different things. We showed you sort of some support. I flew through this today. There's so much to cover. We would love to go in depth with any of you if you have any more questions. Carolyn, were you seeing any questions out there? Were you seeing anything else? Does anybody have any questions for us today?
There weren't any on the sidebar, but if anyone has any final questions, we can take those now as we have a couple of minutes left.
Yeah. We really appreciate your guys' time today too, and very much for that.
Okay, well, if we don't have any questions, we can do some follow-up emails, but otherwise, thank you so much, Malcolm, and thank you everyone for joining today. We really appreciate it and hope you see some value in Teams and also what we presented today.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.